In this video, I'm going to show you how to install an O'Hagan low profile vent on your shingle roof. O'Hagan vents are one of the best vents in my opinion on the market today. They're both slick, look nice, and have a great venting per square inches. It's 72 square inches per O'Hagan vent. Now just to let you know, O'Hagans are a brand name. The generic term is low profile vents. Owens Corning has their own low profile vents that are pretty much identical to O'Hagan. So whether it's an O'Hagan or an Owens Corning low profile vent, the installation method is the same. The nice thing about them is they are a lot sleeker, so you can see instead of the big dormers, you only have about 2 inches sticking up from your roof. The shingles get installed all the way around. They come pre-finished in black, brown, white, I believe a light gray, and a conventional galvanized. O'Hagans are also great for exhaust venting. So the way the vent is built is if you install this near to your ridge, it can serve as a great exhaust as well as an intake and crossflow vents. There's a few steps to make sure that your O'Hagans don't leak. So watch the video and I'll show you the tricks of the trade. The first thing we want to do to get started is cut our wood deck. Now you want to have your shingles installed up to wherever that you want to have your vent installed. So you want to have your shingles pre-installed and you want to have your underlayment installed already as well. The low profile vent gets installed on top of your underlayment and you don't have to lap that properly. So you can just work on the roof and progress until the point that you want to install the vent. Now in order to find the center of the vent, what we like to do is just keep it simple. First thing is we align it to essentially where we want to have it installed. Now you pretty much lap this like you would any other shingle. So if your shingle were to come down here, you want to make sure that your vent is aligned there. You don't want to install it up, you don't want to have these nails exposed. You can come lower, you just don't want to go higher than the exposure line. Generally, we like to install it right flush with that exposure line. That way when our next shingle comes on top, we completely cover this flashing and have a real clean installation. So once we align it, what we're going to do is use a marker to lift this up and mark the center of this vent. All right, so we have this center marked out. We want to measure out an 11 by 11 square and cut that out using our skill saw. So now that we have our roofing membrane, the underlayment, and the top of the shingle cut out, what we want to do is pull any nails that are in our 11 by 11 square. Really, when you're aligning these vents, it's not important that you don't hit a rafter. You can just put it where you please. If there's a rafter going straight down the middle, that's totally fine. And we actually have that in this example. So we're going to pull the nail. One thing we always want to make sure is that we don't have nails when we're cutting with a skill saw. That can cause the skill saw to kick back and it also ruins our blade. So we're going to remove all the nails, then we can go ahead and cut this square out with our skill saw. Now that we've got our 11 by 11 opening cut and ready to go, we're ready to install our O'Hagan. Like I mentioned, you can see that we have our rafter here. That's not a problem. That does not impede proper ventilation. So we just need that 11 by 11 opening. Now one thing that the manufacturer recommends and we like to do is install a bed of mastic around this opening. So you want to make sure that you're installing it on your roofing membrane. And you want to lay about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch bed of mastic around that opening. This is both something that Owens Corning and O'Hagan recommends and is a secondary or third line of defense for leaks. Now that we have our mastic in place, we're ready to install the low profile vent. The type of nails that we're going to be using is the same nails that we use for shingles. Essentially, they're electro-galvanized coil nails that go in a nail gun. You can nail by hand as well, 1.25 to 1.5 inches, depending on what your what deck is. Generally, manufacturers recommend penetrating past that wood deck 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch penetration for proper grab. So these are the nails that we use. We like using a nail gun. It just makes our job a lot faster and a lot easier. So we want to make sure that we properly align the low profile vent with the opening. And again, like I mentioned, we always prefer to go flush with this exposure line, the same place you would install your shingles, to make sure that you have a nice, clean and waterproof finish. So once we have that in place, you can press it down a little bit to get that mastic nice and embedded in the flashing. After that, we want to nail every 4 inches on center, 1 inch in from the edge of the flashing. So 4 inches on center, 1 inch in. Now that we have our low profile vent installed, we can theoretically start installing shingles. However, there's one step that we like to take that's not necessarily recommended by a manufacturer, but what we have talked to our local rep, our technical guy, and he definitely thinks that it's a great step to take, is installing ice and water shield around this flange. This flange, in my opinion, is a little bit short. 4 inches is a little bit too short for my comfort. So we like to install ice and water shield all the way around, as well as the top, though it's not necessary. The top we have a good 8 inches. So we like to install ice and water shield around to really extend this flange out prior to installing our shingle. Now, anytime that we're using any type of self-adhered asphalt-based material, we like to apply a quick bed of asphalt primer to include or improve adhesion. So this is not a necessary step. Again, it's just a way to make sure that this vent never leaks. Now we had to wait a few minutes for this primer to dry. Now that it's dry, we can install this. One thing we want to be sure to do is install it 1/2 inch to 1 inch back from the edge of this vent. And I'll show you why later, but it's an important detail to always follow. Now you can either do this in one piece or have separate pieces for the sides. It's totally up to you. The easiest way is to align it first. Hold one side up. Again, we want to make sure we're above our exposure line and leaving a 1/2 inch to 1 inch gap between the low profile vent and the edge of our ice and water shield. Now that we have this installed, I think it should make sense on why we really like to do it and why we think this is a bulletproof way of installing these low profile vents. Essentially, we've turned a 4-inch flange into an 18-inch flange, guaranteeing us that we won't leak. If you're in different climate zones and have ice and hail and wind-driven rain, I think this is a no-brainer to do. It just takes a few extra minutes, but it'll ensure this vent stays leak-free. At this point, we're ready to start installing our shingles. Now, the shingles will be lined up pretty much like you would the rest of the roof, with a few different differences in installation. Now, we want to line it up and leave it about 3/4 to 1 inch back from this vent right here. What this is going to allow for is water to drain around that vent as opposed to getting shoveled underneath. The other thing we want to do is make sure we don't nail right here at the edge, because we don't want a penetration in this flashing. We want to go about 4 inches back and put one nail here. This is going to be our first nail. After that, we'll continue nailing our shingle in a regular pattern. The last detail we want to make sure to do is what we call dog earing these shingles. It's essentially cutting a 45-degree, about 1.5 inches off. What this allows the water to do is in case any water comes down here, it won't be getting caught on this edge and traveling horizontally. if any water comes here, it's going to be diverted essentially down and through our channel. So these are the few steps you want to take. You want to make sure that you're not nailing on the flashing itself, about 3 to 4 inches out, and dog ear all your shingles. Now that we've got our shingles installed all the way up to the side, what we want to do is put a full piece pretty much right in the middle, and what we're going to do is cut out the O'Hagan opening at this point. So we're going to put a nail just to keep it in place. So you can see what that did is allow us to install the top of the shingle so that we'll have somewhere for the next shingle to properly lap, as well as giving us a good channel. Again, 1/2 inch to 1 inch is what we're looking for around the O'Hagan for proper water drainage. Now the last thing is we need to finish these shingles off, and we'll call this a day. So we've essentially wrapped this up already. I want to show you the reason for this detail right here, and it's a very important one. This allows us to have a level base for this shingle. If we were to not install this top portion and just install pieces on each side, what that would do is when we install this last row of shingle, it would create a dip right here and create an opening in these corners. So now that we've got this installed, we just lay this on top and continue shingling with the rest of our roof. So I want to show you the purpose of this channel that I've been talking about so much. You can see any water that comes here. We really want it to go down and out this channel instead of traveling to the side. Guys, thanks for watching. We've got a lot of other videos on shingle roof installation. If we're missing something, let us know. We'd love to show you how to properly do the things that you want to do. Like, subscribe, and again, if you have any questions, let us know below.